everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Solena Family Chronicles. Tonight, um, we have something that has been on our mind for quite some time, and I felt I should come through and just talk about it the way it is. Anyway, I want to answer some of the frequently asked questions that autism families, autism parents face. More often we talk about autism children and we focus more on what they go through, but we forget something that is very important, and that is the parents or the relatives or the guardians that take care of these children. There's some frequently asked questions that we're going to answer today. I request everyone to give me the eyes, the ears, and to follow through with these questions.
Question number one. How have you managed to cope as a parent? How did you overcome the four stages, starting with denial? How did you manage to go through denial?
I went through denial. I would say that prayerfully, I put everything before God. I used to cry a lot about it, and I know that God sent me guardian angels through colleagues, through colleagues at work who used to comfort me, through support groups around my community. And here where I live in Abu Dhabi and back home in Uganda, we have huge community of people who are ready to spread an awareness about autism around the world. And these people come in with support. You just go and whine and say whatever you want. And also, I did have therapy myself. My husband and I had to go for therapy because we were both going into depression. And that way I was able to cope with denial.
So did the therapy help, or did God help? Which of the two helps?
I would say God, of course, God was top priority and was number one. And also the therapy worked.
So at what point did you decide that we need therapy as parents?
Uh,
What was the trigger of, like, you know what? I think we need to seek therapy.
like I said, we went through depression, and this was really, really bad for us, for me and my husband. I remember having panic attacks, worrying about my son, not knowing what tomorrow holds. And quite often we used to cry about it, both me and him, and we were like, we need help. I remember the psychologist that assessed our son said, when you as parents, you also need to go for therapy so that you stop living in denial, so that you accept and acknowledge that this is here, but you have to find a solution pretty soon.
So how did you accept? What made you say, okay, now I accept my son is autistic, I go to roll my sleeves and work with this?
And I'm a teacher by profession, and I know some of the milestones that children have to hit. So by the time my son was 1.5, I could see that he used not to do most of the things that 1.5 months children can do. And so I went in and did my research, and then I decided that my son needed help because the reports I used to get from school, observation I used to get from his caretakers was so alarming. So I had to intervene.
Wow. So after accepting, what was the next stage?
After accepting that my son is autistic, I had to find help for him, and that is early intervention, like I just said. We took him for therapy. Of course, the first step is having to be assessed by a psychologist, and then they determine on which level of autism he is. And for his case, he's ASD. ASD is autism spectrum disorder level 2, and therefore he needed intervention, and that is speech, OT, and applied behavior analysis. So he's been getting this, and that's how we're finding help.
So talking about that, seeking help and getting professional help, how has that affected you as a family? First of all, financially, then spiritually, then as emotional. because you need to sacrifice some time and focus on the baby. How has that affected you, especially you and your husband?
Thank you for that question. Financially, there was no way out. It's really very expensive to get these therapies. But I would say, we've been taking one day at a time. Honestly, nobody is assured of tomorrow. But with God's grace upon us, we put everything in the hands of God. Honestly, it's no straight line about um the financial challenges with regards to autism. And yeah,
And spiritually,
spiritually,
did you learn to pray more?
I did learn to pray more. And also, I must confess that at one time I was like, oh, why did God send me this? I was questioning God. But then I can see all the signs. I can look around me and I see that God has blessed me with amazing children. And this one is also amazing in a unique way. So I have so many things to thank God for. And it, yes, autism has brought me closer to God. I'm more prayerful than I was yesterday. Yeah.
And you're happy?
My sorry, come again.
And your husband?
My husband is closer to God as well. I've seen him give testimonies of our son being able to walk. I've seen him stand in front of church giving testimonies of how our child is doing ABCD, and I believe he's growing spiritually and he has embraced this amazing challenge that God has given us in a positive way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other question I want to ask as parents, have you introduced your child who is autistic to the other children?
When my child was younger, 1.5, I will take you back there. I told my children when I discovered that your brother is growing differently. He needs support. Because at one time, one of the siblings was asking, oh, why is he not able to talk? Because he was comparing his brother to other children around the community. And I remember my husband and I telling him, pray for your brother because he's growing differently. He's uniquely made but in the image of God, and he needs support to talk, he needs support to communicate, he needs support to interact. And so my children have been with us and with him all step of the way. They support him because we told them in the beginning, as soon as we got the diagnosis of my son, we told everyone, we told the children, we pray about it every time during family worship. We talk about it. They know that their brother is growing differently, so they support him.
Okay. So how has that been introduced, like the environment, the community, at church, at school, the neighbors? How do they manage to understand that he's growing differently?
Thank
What
you
did
for
they do?
thank you for that question. I am my son's biggest advocate. That's for sure. You ought to be also out there if your child is autistic or growing differently. You need to advocate for him. When he does something that is unusual, you need to tell people. You need to make them understand because not everyone knows that autism exists. Not everyone knows that other children grow differently from other children. So I advocate. I remember telling friends at church. I'll give an incident. There's one lady at church who used to, the time just right after my son's diagnosis, she used to think that I behaved like a child because I was withdrawn. She said, why are you behaving like a child? And I did take time to explain to this lady that, look, I'm going through a challenge. My son has just been diagnosed with autism. And then she said, what is autism? I shared information, and then this is the very lady who understood what autism is, and she supports us all the way. And then also around the church community, there was someone who came to me and said, "What? Your child has autism? You must be very rich because autism comes to rich families." And I sat her down and I said, look, this is what you think it is, but it's not what it is. We are struggling also financially. God has sent this to us and we have to find means of living with it. And so I've been advocating for my son. And I know that most of the people we associate with at church and in our community, they know that my son is autistic and they are supportive of that.
Wow. So now talking about family, the large family, of course, living out your children and your husband, because we talked about them. How did you introduce your son's situation to your large family, like your parents, your in-laws, your sister-in-laws, your mother-in-law, and your sisters, your brothers, their cousins? How did you manage that?
Thank you for that question. I mean, I did inform my father-in-law because he is in the education sector and he knows more about autism than I do. And he embraced my son. And my mother-in-law, it was very easy to inform her. Like she's an educator as well, and she's very supportive and prayerful. But I'm still trying to bring my own family on board. They're trying to understand because most of them thought maybe my child is spoiled. Most of them thought my child is being pampered, over pampered, and that is why he is behaving differently. But overall, we're still work in progress with my family, my extended family.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for parents who are going through the same, like they are struggling to explain or bring the issue to their relatives, community, church, workplaces, what advice would you give them?
Mm, I would start by advising them to advocate for their for their child. You need to be your child's biggest fan. You need to be the one you need to go out there and be the voice that your child needs. For my case, my son is nonverbal, so I am his voice. I speak on his behalf for now until God decides to give him a voice. So um let them know what's going on. Bring them on board. Tell them, communicate with them. Tell them, I know you saw my son running up the parkour, but he's growing differently. I mean, let them know what's going on. Bring them on board. Let them speak on behalf of your child.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about support, who has been your biggest supports?
That's a very good question. Uh, I mean, God is above all, but then I have my husband who is God bless you, really, because he listens to me. I do a lot of research. I'm very good at searching for stuff and bringing them up and trying this recipe, trying the other recipe, trying this home remedy, trying the other home remedy. But he supports me. He supports me. He always says, "Okay, let's try. Let's try this one. No problem, babe. Let's go for this." I mean, he's very supportive of. And then I have my work community. My boss, my previous boss, Miss Fatima, was very, very supportive. I remember she used to give me hugs all the time. I would break down. She used to tell me, "Oh, try this center, try the other center." And obviously, the support group, they've been very helpful to me. Um, we have lots of support groups around Abu Dhabi. We have the Butterfly, and then Kampala, we have the Autism support group. And I, I mean, I've got a lot of supporters. I can't go on and on, but overall, my husband and God above all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we close, we would want to know, how can you help the other parents that are still struggling? They are living in denial. Okay, some of them have accepted, but they don't even know where to get help. They don't even have this financial stamina to help themselves or even get help for their children. Others don't even know where to get the help. Others are struggling to accept and talk about it publicly like you have. What advice do you give them as we close?
Um, living in denial is very difficult, but it's a tough one. Thank you for asking this question. When you're still living in denial, first of all, it affects you emotionally, and if you see that your child is really not hitting the milestones as they should, please try to go take a bold step and go for early intervention. It's it's a hard thing. It's hard to accept. But if as a parent you really care about your child or your children, they can be twins or any whatever, go for early intervention. There's no such thing as, oh, they're hitting on my child. That's why they're saying he's growing differently. No, There's always a truth in whatever they say. Just go. If the educators tell you you need to go for assessment, please go take your child. The earlier you do it, the better. I wonder if I've answered that question.
You've tried to. Thank you so much, Madam Elena. We have been blessed and we look forward to more videos and helping the community and everyone, parents with autism, to accept this. So give us a close as we say. So
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you come through for your children that are autistic. And please don't hide your children in the house, or if you're in Uganda, behind the house, or don't lock your child in the house in the bedrooms and visitors come around. Let them flourish. Help your children. Intervene. Love on them. Pray for them. Cherish your children. They're angels sent right from heaven straight to you. You do not know why that child is born. Maybe it's Angel Michael or Gabriel that was sent from heaven, just straight to your family. Okay? Ah, much.